Hello dear listener, please subscribe to our channel. Enjoy watching. I always thought love was supposed to be the safest place, a refuge from the storm. But when I found out about Madison's betrayal, something inside me shifted. Love had turned into a battlefield, and I wasn't about to be the one left bleeding. Madison Archer, my wife of 6 years. Beautiful, charming, disarmingly clever. I worshipped her, trusted her with every piece of me. She said we were perfect together. I believed her. Until I didn't. It was the little things at first. The way she lingered too long in the bathroom with her phone, the hushed laughter when she thought I wasn't listening. And then, one night, the truth came crashing down like a hammer. A single, damning text notification glowing on her screen while she slept beside me. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. G****. Grayson Holt. Our couple's therapist. The man we had trusted to help heal our marriage. I stared at the screen, my heart beat a slow, heavy drum. I wasn't a fool, I didn't need to see the rest of the messages. I already knew. I looked at Madison then, her lips slightly parted in sleep, peaceful and innocent. A liar. A betrayer. She thought she was untouchable. I slipped the phone back into her hand, pressing my lips to her forehead as I whispered, "You have no idea what's coming for you." For days, I went through the motions, careful not to tip her off. I smiled when I needed to, kissed her forehead in the morning, and even played along when she asked if I was feeling better. Better? No. But I was getting there. I started researching islands, ones that were remote, exclusive. The kind of place only a handful of people knew about. It took a few weeks, but I found the perfect one, a private retreat in the South Pacific, accessible only by a single charter plane. No nearby villages, no cell towers, no escape. I made the arrangements. The moment I suggested the trip, Madison's face lit up with delight. A second honeymoon? Really? We need to reconnect, I told her, my voice full of carefully manufactured warmth. I want us to find our way back to each other. She hesitated for a second, but the promise of white sand beaches and a luxury villa was too much to resist. I'd love that, she said, smiling up at me, those same lying lips kissing my cheek. I booked an exclusive island retreat, a place so remote there wouldn't be another soul for miles. Just us. Or so she thought. The island was paradise. Crystal clear water, lush green palm trees swaying in the ocean breeze. Madison was enchanted from the moment we arrived, spinning barefoot in the sand, her golden hair catching the sunlight. I watched her with quiet amusement, knowing that soon, that same sand would be soaked in something far less innocent. Nightfall came, and we toasted with expensive wine on the terrace of our private villa. To new beginnings, I said, clinking my glass against hers. She didn't see the small camera lens hidden in the corner, watching her every move. Madison drank deeply, the alcohol dulling her senses, making her slow. I took her hand, tracing circles against her skin. "There's a surprise for you," I murmured, leading her to the edge of the jungle path that snaked behind the villa. "A surprise?" she giggled, slightly unsteady. "Oh, you'll love it." The moment she stepped into the clearing, she froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Grayson was there. Bound to a tree, a thick rope biting into his wrists. His face was bruised, a gash along his temple leaking crimson. I had taken my time getting him here, making sure he understood exactly why he was tied up in this godforsaken place. His eyes were wild as they darted between me and Madison. What the hell is this?" Madison gasped, spinning to face me. I smiled. "It's a game." Madison's breath came in short, panicked bursts. "Daniel, please, let him go." "Oh, no, sweetheart. That's not how this works." I pulled a hunting knife from my belt, its steel blade gleaming in the moonlight. Madison took a step back, her hands trembling. You betrayed me, I said, my voice calm. You slept with him. Lied to me. And now, you get to decide. Grayson was struggling against his bonds, his muffled cries of protest useless against the thick cloth gag in his mouth. I dropped the knife between them, letting it stick upright in the damp earth. One of you leaves this island alive, I told them. But only if the other one dies first. Madison's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God. You're insane. I shrugged. Maybe. But I'm also giving you a chance. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to Grayson. This is a joke, right? This isn't real. Grayson's muffled screams told her otherwise. Then I cut his bonds and stepped back. He lunged for the knife. Madison shrieked, scrambling away, but he was too fast, his hand closing around the hilt. He turned toward me, but I already had my own weapon raised, a gun this time. He hesitated, knowing that if he came for me, he'd be dead before he got within reach. You want to live? I asked. Kill her. He turned to Madison, his grip tightening on the knife. Madison. You wouldn't, she whispered, voice trembling. Grayson's eyes darted between the gun and me, calculating. And then he moved. Grayson lunged, the knife clutched in his trembling hands. Madison barely had time to scream before he was upon her, desperation turning him into an animal. She twisted, scrambling backward, her foot slipping in the loose sand. The moonlight glinted off the blade as it arced through the air, narrowly missing her shoulder. Grayson, stop, she shrieked, her voice ragged with terror. His face was contorted in a mask of pure fear. I have no choice, he panted, his grip on the knife tightening. He's going to kill us both. Madison's breath came in heaving sobs as she dodged another swing, her bare feet skidding against the jungle floor. She wasn't fast enough. Grayson tackled her, pinning her to the ground. His weight pressed against her chest, forcing the air from her lungs. You should have just stayed loyal, he hissed, his eyes wild. Madison's hands flailed, grasping for anything. Her fingers found a rock, smooth and heavy, and she swung it with every ounce of strength she had left. The sickening crack of bone echoed through the clearing. Grayson's body slumped, the knife falling from his grip as he toppled onto the ground beside her, dazed. Madison wasted no time. She scrambled to her feet, grabbed the fallen knife, and staggered away, gasping for breath. I watched from the shadows, intrigued. She had more fight in her than I anticipated. Madison didn't run. Instead, she crouched, clutching the knife close to her chest, scanning her surroundings. Smart girl. Daniel, she screamed, her voice hoarse. You want a game? Let's play. I chuckled under my breath. She was cornered, and she knew it. I stepped out of the darkness, slow and deliberate, the gun resting easily in my grip. The sight of me sent a fresh wave of panic through her. Why? She demanded, her voice trembling. Why are you doing this? Because you took everything from me, I said simply. I gave you loyalty, love, everything you ever wanted. And you spat on it. She swallowed hard. Daniel, please. I tilted my head. No more begging, Madison. Let's finish this. She turned and ran. Not toward the villa, not toward the dock where the boat had left us, but deeper into the jungle. Good. She was leading herself straight to where I wanted her. I followed at a leisurely pace, letting her think she had a chance. The jungle was thick, the canopy blocking out most of the moonlight. I could hear her crashing through the undergrowth, her ragged breaths cutting through the night air. Then, silence. I slowed, my finger tightening on the trigger. Was she hiding? Or had she finally understood the futility of escape? A movement to my left. Too late. Madison lunged from the shadows, her stolen knife slicing through the air. I barely dodged, the blade grazing my arm. The sting was immediate, hot blood trickling down my skin. I grinned. That's more like it. She didn't wait for me to recover. She ran again, but now she had my blood on her hands. And that made things interesting. She had one advantage: desperation. And desperation made people unpredictable. She must have realized the jungle would eventually trap her, because she doubled back, sprinting toward the beach. I followed, keeping my pace measured. Let her think she was gaining ground. When she burst onto the shore, she stumbled, her legs buckling under exhaustion. The moon bathed the sand in silver light, illuminating the empty horizon. There was no way off the island. The boat was long gone. "It's over, Madison," I called, stepping onto the beach behind her. Nowhere left to run. She turned, her chest heaving. The knife was still in her hand, her knuckles white from the grip. "Then come and get me." I smirked. "Gladly." I raised the gun, but before I could pull the trigger, a sound split the night. A low, distant hum. My blood turned to ice. A boat engine. Madison's head snapped toward the horizon. The boat was small, barely visible against the dark waves, but it was coming straight for the island. No. No, this wasn't part of the plan. "Help!" Madison screamed, her voice raw. She ran toward the water, waving her arms frantically. Panic surged in my chest. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't let her escape. I raised the gun again. A sudden, searing pain tore through my shoulder. The shot went wild, missing Madison completely. I staggered back, stunned. My fingers went to my shoulder, coming away slick with blood. Grayson. I turned in time to see him collapsing onto the sand, the rock he had hurled at me slipping from his fingers. He was still alive. Barely. But he had just cost me everything. The boat was close now. A voice shouted from the deck. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Madison's sobs filled the air as she stumbled toward the rescuers. "Please. Help me." I had seconds to decide. Stay and risk capture. Or disappear into the jungle and let them believe I was never here. With one final look at my bleeding wife and her barely breathing lover, I turned and vanished into the trees. They thought I was dead. The news reports were almost laughable. "Wealthy entrepreneur Daniel Archer lost at sea," they said. "Tragic ending to a honeymoon gone wrong." No body was ever found. Madison was hospitalized for weeks, recovering from her injuries. She told the world about how I had lost my mind, how I had kidnapped her and Grayson. How she barely survived. They ate it up. She became the tragic widow, the victim of my madness. I watched from a distance as she moved on. 6 months later, she remarried. And that's when I knew, it wasn't over. 6 months had passed since I disappeared into the jungle, leaving behind a scene of chaos and betrayal. The world believed me dead, lost to the sea. Madison moved on faster than I expected, her grief a well-acted performance for the cameras. I watched from the shadows as she rebuilt her life. She married again, a wealthy real estate mogul named Robert Langford. A man with deep pockets, but not deep enough to protect her from what was coming. I had spent those 6 months preparing, planning, making sure this time, I wouldn't just scare her. I would destroy her. The Langfords were hosting a lavish charity gala. A night of glitz, wealth, and high society. The perfect place to make my grand return. I secured an invitation under a false identity, just another masked guest in a sea of extravagance. Madison looked stunning in her deep red gown, the very color of blood. She laughed and smiled, wrapped in the security of her new husband's wealth. Robert, oblivious to the monster lurking in his midst, held her close. The moment she saw me, her face paled. I smiled, raising my glass to her from across the ballroom. She dropped hers. I found her in the empty hall leading to the private gardens, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. "You're supposed to be dead," she whispered. "I am," I said, stepping closer. "And yet, here I am. Watching you move on. Loving another man. Did you really think it was over?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't fooled. Madison was a survivor, just like me. "Please, Daniel," she whispered. "Don't do this." I chuckled. "You think you have a choice?" I leaned in, my lips a breath away from her ear. "I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took everything from me." She shuddered as I pulled away, and I saw the horror in her eyes. "Enjoy the party, darling. It's your last." I made my move that night. Robert Langford's empire was built on secrets, and I had uncovered enough to tear it down. A single tip to the media, an anonymous call to the authorities, and his entire empire crumbled. Financial fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, his name was splashed across every headline by morning. Madison's new life was burning to the ground. Then, the final blow, I made sure Robert found out about her past. The affair, the lies, the murder she barely escaped. He threw her out like garbage, and now, she had nothing. Just like I wanted. I found her sitting alone in a rundown motel, staring at the wall with empty eyes. "You look awful," I mused, stepping inside. She didn't flinch. "You win." I sat beside her on the bed, tilting her chin up so she had no choice but to look at me. "No, Madison. We're just getting started." A flicker of defiance returned. "What more do you want from me?" I leaned in, my voice a whisper. "I want you to know what it feels like to have nothing. No money, no security, no future. I want you to be afraid every time you close your eyes. Because I will always be watching." Her breath hitched. "You're a monster." I smiled. "You made me one." And with that, I walked away, leaving her to drown in the wreckage of the life she built. She would live. But she would never be free. Months passed. The world moved on, forgetting the name Madison Langford. But I didn't. From time to time, I would leave a single rose outside her motel door. Just a reminder. She would never know peace. And I would never stop watching. If you leave a comment, tell us what you think about the story you heard. It's important to us and will help us find and tell stories that you find interesting. Thank you for watching us.